Hey everyone, it's May 2nd, and May is, of course, Mental Health Awareness Month. So I'm super excited to be bringing my friend Jennifer Sodini on to join me, and we're going to be talking about all things mental health. And so she's an amazing author, an amazing teacher, and I'm going to bring her on right now.
There's that cliche quote, was like one truth, many songs, right? And
Yeah.
Many wisdom traditions have this, whether it's Judaism and you have your bar bat mitzvah, or if it's Christianity when you have communion, or you're in
Or
Freemasonry.
baptism.
In baptism, yeah, you
Right.
ascend through different degrees of awareness, and it's stepping into a new covenant, a new responsibility, a new consciousness, and you'll never be the same from that space.
Yeah, it's like a new chapter.
Yes.
It's a new season and a new chapter, and I think that an area in nature, of course, it's the seasonal changes, the astrological changes. They all symbolize different initiations, and the basic principle is an initiation. And I'm not telling you anything you don't know. I'm just sort of gathering a premise for our discussion. An initiation is the definition that I wrote for my book coming up. An initiation is the activation of all that you've learned and all that you've collected. And so something's being put to the test. So we think, of course, of the secret societies or fraternities or sororities that have an initiatory process. And you learn the rules and the bylaws, and you sign the paperwork, and they haze you, and you go through all the idea is, have you really learned this this data, this content? Are you able to actually apply it? And let's see how you look. Let's see how you operate. Let's see how you act when you're surprised. When you're surprised by the initiatory context. And so when it comes to like a baptism, you're taught about the waters of baptism, how they're purifying. You're taught about the symbolism of wearing white, and how it's about purification. And you go into the waters of baptism, and it purifies you of everything from your past, and then you walk through life clean. And now you make new decisions. It was like a gift of purification, and now you can accumulate new karma. And so the value, and I think that we find a lot in psychology, the value of initiation is the turning of the page, the turning of a new leaf, and saying, look, I was, like you mentioned, the bar mitzvah or the bat mitzvah, I was a child, now I'm a man. And a man has to do things, or a woman has to do things differently than a child.
Completely. Or if you even think of in the Eastern Star, there's different levels of initiation rites where, you see what it's like to be the daughter, the sister, the wife, and the widow. And it represents the different seasons, looking at everything as an archetypal experience to sit with, come into relationship with, and understand and uphold.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. And it's like, with in Carl Jung's work in Jungian psychology, they have the mature archetypes and the immature archetypes. And just, hey, everybody. Hey, Alex. Hey, Rua. Hey, Ellie. Hey, everyone who is here. If you guys have any questions for Jen, like, I'll keep an eye and we'll ask them, but we're just going to keep rolling. So yeah, the mature and the immature archetypes, right? So the mature feminine archetypes, I think it's the mature masculine archetypes I have better memorized because I'm a dude. And it's king, warrior, magician, lover. And I believe the mature feminine archetypes are called mother, healer, priestess, lover. Mother, healer, is that it? Mother, healer, priestess, lover?
Like mother, maiden, crone. But I like yours better. It sounds nicer.
I know crone is like a little bit. It's like it doesn't sound that nice. Someone's saying, "What's the book called?" They reference. There are a few different books that we reference, but I want to just mention Jennifer's book It's a book and an oracle deck. It's called Amenti Oracle. You have one handy?
Mm-hmm.
Living with the Feather Heart. It's so beautiful. Such a special book. That's the one I really want to recommend. We did mention a few other more like reference material, I think, but that's one that I really think is really applicable to check out. And so so with the premise of initiation, the idea is really choosing to become something new, choosing to take what we've learned and apply it. Like it's where the rubber meets the road, I feel like, in initiation. And of course, you mentioned that there's crisis, and crisis, Alice Bailey posits a universal truth. It's not even really her work. It's a universal truth that a crisis is an initiation. How you're never the same after your first car accident. You're never the same after your first child that you have. You're never the same after your first heartbreak.
Yeah.
You know,
and even my path, my big initiator was death. Losing my family and looking at death was a great initiator. To have that crisis and then to come out on the other side with new perspective. So anything in the sense of radical transformation can be an initiation too.
And so thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that's where I want to sort of like shift the conversation towards. There's an aspect of mental health that's really about recognizing that to take care of your mental health has nothing to do with mental illness. It's just like with our physical health. It's not about illness. It's about cultivating health, And so there are things that we can do to cultivate mental health and mental wellness that are things that are unrelated to mental illness, So you don't have to have mental illness or have, I don't like the stigma around that. In order to want to cultivate mental health. Everyone should be wanting to cultivate mental health, just like everyone cultivates or should cultivate or wants to cultivate or whatever should want to cultivate physical health. And so that's what I think is really lovely about your book. First of all, I do think we are going through a collective initiation. And I think that your book and your deck and your new book are all coming out really at beautiful times for the collective initiation. And of course, the pandemic is an initiation. Losing someone we love, grief is an initiation. And I want to look at grief as a normal part of life. It's not a mental illness when you're heartbroken or depressed with grief, but it's still a factor in mental health to healthily experience it and navigate it. And I feel like I want to hear you present a little bit about the ideals of Ma'at, the positive confessions, your deck, and because I think that your book and your deck is really an initiation, and that someone can choose to like really consider different facets of their own consciousness and bring themselves to a better season, through the gates of initiation. So let's hear it. Tell us a little bit about the book and the principles it's based on.
Yeah. So in the summer of 2013, I went down to Costa Rica, and when I was in this retreat center, I had a dream, and in the dream, I saw myself looking down a hallway, and at the end of the hallway was a being, and I was completely lucid, and the being had said to me, I had this sense of awe, this shock, this, oh my gosh, like I'm having contact. And the being in my dream had said that, no, there is no alien, there is no other, there is no separate. All that matters in this life is that your heart is as light as this feather. And then he pulled out a scale with a feather and a heart. And at that time, that was 7 years ago. And I was really working through a lot of the trauma from my fear of death, my fear of loss, family trauma, ancestral trauma, all the stuff a lot of us are working through and with, but in particular, a fear of death. So that dream caused me to research the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Little did I know that was a major symbol in there. So in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, it is believed that when you die and you go to the Hall of Judgment, the weight of your soul is actually measured through your heart. And if your heart is as light as the feather of Ma'at or Mayet, it depends on how you want to pronounce it, then you can pass through to the next life. But if you're heavy-hearted, you're devoured by Amit, which is this chimera demon, and you're destined to start all over again. So it's something that, as a philosophy, really stuck with me. So in the Hall of Judgment, you have to recite the 42 negative confessions of Ma'at, which are, I have not committed sin, I have not, they're all these kind of negative confessions, I have not. So the 42 ideals, which we explore in Amenti Oracle, are based off of the 42 ideals of Ma'at. Instead of it being the negative confessions, it's turned into an empowerment. So every card is an I am. I am peaceful. I honor virtue. I affirm that all life is sacred. It puts really power in yourself. And one of the words that, why it feels really relevant to this time now too, is because it really inspires sovereignty by coming into relationship with these ideals and coming into relationship with the heart. A heavy heart is awful to navigate this life with. It causes fear, it causes judgment, it causes resentment, it causes jealousy. It can be paralyzing, it can be crippling. And in the work of working through these ideals and having that feather heart, it really helps you live more. So there's that quote, it's like the secret of life is to die before you die, and then you find out that there is no death. So in stripping away all the things that aren't you, you become closer to your true essence, which is that of love, which is that of light, which is that of the feather heart. And I would be remiss to say too that in order to come into a relationship with the sacred nature of the heart, it's not easy. It's not easy when you begin to look in the mirror, because you have to look at all of the aspects of self. And you and I actually had a really powerful initiation back in December, where I really had to go deep into darkness to find light again. And in that practice, in that experience, on the other side of it, what brought me closer to meditation and grounding, and that's why your work has been so inspiring to me and actually really informed a lot of everyday Amenti, because it is so meditative, because it is so creative, because it is so grounded, feet on the ground. And that's something that I have to honor with your work, is that you do such a great job of synthesizing this information in a really grounded and beautiful and practical way. So
thank you. I so appreciate you saying that. And I have to say, this is the first time I've really heard you say that my work has inspired or altered your work, especially this upcoming book. But it's funny because my upcoming book actually features, you were the one that really introduced me and taught me about the positive confessions of the ideals of Ma'at. And that is actually referenced and mentioned in my new book. So and so it's, but of course, just like you said, it's with an effort of making it as grounded as possible. Just as an aside, I have resources, and it's listed. The ideals of Ma'at is listed alongside the 10 commandments of Moses, the fruit of the spirit and the fruit of the flesh from the New Testament, the 7 hermetic principles. And so it's essentially like a reflection on all of the different ancient traditions, how to be, and so that's what I thought was so special when you first told me that your book was coming out. First of all, you've written a ton of amazing articles for a lot of different publications. Some of them are your own media platforms, but a number of other media platforms. And you're so prolific. You get so much done, and you're generating so much content. And it's all so good. It's such good content. I remember one day you and I were just talking, and we were talking about how it was the new moon or something. And we were talking about the symbolism of that particular moon. And we were just sort of waxing poetic and having a moment together. And then that day you wrote a blog about it and offered this this exercise with this essential oil and a candle. And it was just so beautiful how I think that's important, how you actually generate content and you produce it, and so that's something that I see with you, and bringing it within the context of mental health. I want to just sort of hear, for me, what I see when I see that is I see that's part of how you stay sane, you know, generating content, creating, tuning into your creativity. Um, and but I also want to just sort of like hear from your perspective how you navigate your own mental health challenges. Not that you necessarily have more than anyone else, but I mean, we all have them, and we're in a collective initiation. And so I want to hear a little bit, maybe mention the isolation tank offering, and then some of the other things that you do personally, and also the things that you offer in the context of mental health.
So one of the greatest pieces of advice that I have ever been given is that the fastest way to win an argument is to admit that you're wrong. So when it comes to mental health, taking a deep look in the mirror and taking accountability for the times that I've fumbled has been so integral in my path. You know, we're human. We're human beings, and we're here, and we're inevitably going to fumble. Even Gandhi, I'm sure, had his moments of not so greatness. So something, you know, being completely candid, talking mental health, something I've really had to work through in the last few years is anger. And my anger issues and feeling triggered. And where does anger come from? Anger is a secondary emotion, right? Mm-hmm. Anger is actually the result of something deeper, which is, you know, not feeling heard, not feeling valued, the little kid in you being like, well, what about me? So doing a lot of inner child work has been really helpful too, and keeping my feet on the ground. So as you ascend to higher levels of consciousness and explore that, whatever tool you use to get there, whether it's meditation, plant medicines, you know, fasting, whatever it is that you choose, integration and keeping your feet on the ground is so essential. And they're just, that becomes tools for your toolkit. So meditation, I mean, for me, in my own subjective journey, creativity is the highest form of spirit for me. I have no other choice but to channel that. So, you know, you mentioned isolation tank. This time in quarantine, I've just been really trying to be in a creative vortex because it's grounding for me, and it's a way to channel that divine energy and put it into something tangible and hopefully useful. But it's really important when working with mental health that put aside blame, put aside, well, you know, they did this to me. It's like, well, how can I take better care of me and tend to myself, whether it's through meditation, journaling, creativity, grounding. Really, really key to stay grounded right now and not get so lost in the ethers or the fear machine.
Yeah, so good. That resonates a lot. And I think for me, one of the ways that I get grounded is to write, and to not just brain dump, but to really write coherent information, to like create these books that I'm writing, to write articles, you know, to really write coherent, well done, refined content. I think that's, you know, it's like really to do something well is what feels really grounding to me, to try to do it well, you know.
Definitely.
So Alex is saying, what's a great way of grounding? And that I basically just answered my version of that, to produce something, to create something really well, you know, not just, it is maybe for me, but to go through the process of actually getting it to like a publisher and out into the world, holds me to a higher standard of grounding, you know. But I want to hear some other ways from you. What are some ways for you, Jen, of grounding?
Literally grounding. So there are studies that say when you actually put your feet on the grass, there's something with the negative ions and it balances the body. So in this time of global pandemic and chaos, and the media machine is just pumping out so much, left, right, it's a different thing every day. Taking a digital detox and putting your feet on the ground and just taking a moment to be present is so, so important. Earthing, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That has been really great. Knowing when to set healthy boundaries, whether that's through the media that you consume, or social media can be really toxic in and of itself. So, you know, in the process of creation creativity can sometimes ebb and flow when you have divine insight and you're writing and you get like all these chapters done in your book, but then all of a sudden you find yourself at an impasse, at a pause, and then maybe scroll through social media, and then you get triggered. You say, well, how do they have so much? And they have this book and that, and that's boundaries. Boundaries are so crucial and a really great way to keep your feet on the ground and focused on what your vision is, not letting any outside noise interfere.
Yeah. And so I also think that that's really, really good. And I also think that your, the undertone, the premise of Amenti Oracle, the fact that they are positive affirmations, that you've chosen the positive, just your choice to base it on the ideals of Ma'at, and your curation of the artwork, and Natalie's beautiful artwork, her wonderful illustrations, so gorgeous. Let's draw some. Why don't you draw one for all of us?
Sure.
Yeah. And I think what's really special from like a neuroscience perspective to tune into the positive thing, what I love about what Jesus did versus the Mosaic Law, but the Mosaic Law had a lot of the 10 Commandments where thou shalt not. It was a lot of it was like, stop doing that, stop doing that, stop doing that, which has its place, you know. But then what I loved about Jesus, he gave one new commandment, and it was like, love God, love others, you know. Love is the new commandment, you know. And that's like a positive confession. So what do we got?
I am humble. So especially in talking about what you're sharing, this feels like a perfect card, because a lot of the Amenti Oracle is based off of Proverbs. I feel like one of the greatest magic tricks I was ever able to pull off is to create an Oracle deck that also references Jesus and passages from the Essenes and major wisdom traditions around the world. So this, I am humble, has a Serbian proverb that says, be humble for you're made of earth, be noble for you're made of stars. So in speaking of grounding, look at that, be humble for you're made of earth, be noble for you're made of stars. And, you know, the kind of myth that I wove this card is the whole tale of the emperor's new clothes. So, you know, be naked in your truth. And there's something really important about humility. So
yeah, that's actually one of the in the Bible, there's the fruit of the spirit and fruit of the flesh, based on those two aspects of our nature, the stars and the earth, the spiritual nature and the material nature, the higher nature and the lower nature. And in the Bible, in Galatians, it's the fruit of the flesh and the fruit of the spirit, which is, of course, what my new book is based on, the fruit of the spirit, and humbleness is one of them. And so I think that's really cool, like how you, first of all, I love talking to you, because I feel like we have so much in common and so much in harmony, but we're so different, and we just have such, I just always feel really, really blessed by the ideas that you have and the information that you bring up. And yeah, I think that's really cool. Like that has left such an imprint, such an impression, what you just shared. Be humble, for you are made of earth. Be noble, for you are made of stars. Wow. Why don't you draw two more cards for us?
Well, it's actually funny because I did pull the next one, which is also perfect. So I talked about the magic trick that I got to create an Oracle deck that references the Bible. So this next card is I do good.
That's a beautiful card. Yes.
Yeah, so you talk about the gospel is the good news, right? You're spreading the good news. And how can I do good? To be goodness as a verb, to be goodness as something that I do, I am, I act. This one is really special to me because, you know, goodness, in a lot of New Age literature, there's such an emphasis on I do to get. It's very quid pro quo.
Transactional.
Transactional. But this card and the passage in the card is really about doing good because it's good to do good, not in respect of reward, but just that internal reward. So the kingdom of God is within you, the sacred heart. When doing goodness, there's nothing that's not a commodified thing. To do good, not for quid pro quo.
Yeah.
So that's the good news.
Oh, that is the good news. That's so good. I love that you shared that. And, you know, yesterday, it's so interesting. Yesterday, Karma Decker, my mother, was on here with me, and so much of what she shared is like the same principles of what you're sharing. So it's like really, really cool to see that kind of harmony, the universal truths coming through. So yeah, and what I really also love about that is the emphasis on action, like you said, to act. We are all good. You know, we're good, and but to be good really means to do good. You know, to do good like that. You know, to actually take right action, as they say in Buddhism, right action, to allow it to demonstrate. You know, through our bodies, you know, through our actions. In the Bible, it also says that kindness is love in action. So love in action, it's all about that, like that it's the merging of the higher nature and the lower nature, and it's the merging of our earth and our stars coming together into expression. Which that's the kingdom of God, right? That's the kingdom of heaven, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny because to get woo for a second. So Edgar Casey had said that, you know, if you think of the esoteric context of our Lord's Prayer, how it begins, Our Father art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Going through, so every morning that's the prayer that I do. I really love the Aramaic version. I actually have that on my neck because it's so sacred, the Aramaic translation of Our Lord's Prayer, and just taking that time to connect. And as you say the words, feel them. And it's funny because the last card that I'll pull, because the random's never random. Hi, Noah. Oh my God, I love Noah. You are a light. We love you. The last card is I hold purity in high esteem, which is so funny because you're talking about purification. And this card is actually really directly influenced by the trip you and I went to Egypt. So when we went to Egypt, we went to a space called Saqqara, and in the pyramid texts of Saqqara, there are all these ancient oils and perfumes that the Egyptian gods and goddesses, which are actually the Egyptian word for god and goddess is neter, which is loosely translates to force of nature. So it's not necessarily separate from God, like the Godhead, it's forces of source. So holding purity and high esteem in the pyramid texts of Saqqara, they talk about the different oils for purification, for opening the different energy centers, for not holding purity in the sense of chastity, but really tending to the vessel that you're in. Your body is your temple, you know, to really tend to it and take care of it and purify thoughts, and not necessarily, again, in like a chaste way, but to just clear negative limiting beliefs, to clear
and also not necessarily not in a chaste way, you know, like there is you know, there's light and dark and neutral. Yes. You know, and I love the implications of I hold purity in high esteem. You know, it's like I don't want to drink muddy water. No. You know, so that's really, really good. Where do we buy the deck? It's everywhere. It's everywhere books are sold. Barnes and Noble, Amazon, Diesel Books, every magic shop you could ever dream of. Amazon's probably the easiest place to get it.
This is what the box looks like.
That is so gorgeous, and it's like the most amazing gift you could ever receive, really, but also give. Great gift box. Love it so much. Jen, you are such a pleasure to talk with. I feel like I could do this for another 16 hours. But I don't want to take too much of your time. We're on the East Coast, so it's late over here. Before we wrap up, I want to just give you the floor. If there's anything, any takeaways, or maybe you want to recap something that we shared for Mental Health Awareness Month. So what's up?
So my parting words will be this. So I think a really important thing to remember with mental health is to not be afraid to ask for help. And, you know, like the Beatles say, I get by with a little help from my friends. And for those tuning in, I'm going to plug you. Ben has been such an important friend, colleague, ally, and teacher who's helped me through some of the most challenging moments of my life because of his work, because of his heart, because of his message. And I think that having done this live with you and talking about the heart and the sacredness of that space, it's really important to not be afraid to reach out to people that you care about and ask for help. And help is always there. And it's really important to stay grounded as you ascend to higher levels of consciousness, and practices like meditation are so sacred. And yeah, I just thank you and I honor you, and I think you're wonderful, Ben.
Oh, I think you're so wonderful. Thank you so much for that. And I couldn't agree more. Everyone go follow Jennifer Sodini. She's got a lot of really great content she produces. You are such a great teacher too. You just create the most amazing, delicious, edutainable content, edutaining content. And I love what you're doing on the Amenti Oracle Instagram page. I love the Radio Amenti content. I love Evolve and Ascend. I just love everything. So go check her out. She's got a lot of different things. Really, really fun, really, really different ways of exploring your psyche. She is one in a million. She's 100% original. Never a carbon copy. All original content. Super creative over here. So such an honor to be doing this with you, Jen. And happy Mental Health Awareness Month, everybody.
Happy Mental Health Awareness. I love you, Ben. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.